Chapter 4: The Two Musketeers. The Plaza Cafe was almost empty, the hum of quiet conversation and the soft clatter of dishes filling the stillness as evening descended. Liam O'Neill and Ronan Hughes sat in a shadowed corner, each holding a coffee cup, their faces cast in soft light. Outside, rain tapped against the windows, creating a steady rhythm that underscored the tension simmering between them. Ronan leaned forward, eyes sharp, his voice taut with frustration. "They're gutting us, Liam. Bit by bit, they're dismantling everything that's supposed to protect people. And we're just sitting here, playing by their rules." Liam met Ronan's intense gaze, holding his own cup in both hands. He waited, letting the words settle before responding. "I'm not saying we should do nothing, Ronan. But there's a line between calling attention to what's wrong and setting fire to every bridge we have left. We need credibility if we want to make change stick." Ronan scoffed, his face twisting in frustration. Credibility. He bit out the word as though it tasted bitter. Credibility with who, Liam? With them? They don't deserve it. You think they care if we're credible? Liam sighed, a faint smile, almost wistful, playing on his lips. He'd had this conversation with Ronan many times before. This fiery passion, this hunger to shake things up, was both Ronan's greatest strength and his most dangerous weakness. And yet, he couldn't deny that it had driven their cause forward on more than one occasion. He admired it, even if he knew it needed tempering. "We've talked about this," Liam said, his tone calm, steady. "If we push too hard, they'll paint us as radicals, fringe troublemakers. We can't afford that. This isn't just about fighting for change, it's about making sure we even have a seat at the table. It's a long game, Ronan." Ronan's hand clenched into a fist, his knuckles turning white as he pressed down on the table. "The long game." His voice was low, simmering. "How long is too long, Liam? How long do we sit around watching people get trampled while we make nice with those trampling them? Sometimes I wonder." He paused, his voice softening, almost to himself. "Sometimes I wonder if you're just comfortable with where you are. Maybe you've even gotten used to them having the upper hand." Liam's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes, a momentary shadow. "Comfortable?" He repeated the word slowly, as though weighing it. "This isn't comfort, Ronan. It's reality. You know what happened last time someone went off half-cocked. I'm not willing to let a hasty decision destroy everything we've worked for." The silence between them grew heavy, charged. Outside, lightning flashed, casting harsh shadows across their faces, the raw intensity in Ronan's frown, the quiet resolve in Liam's steady gaze. The storm outside seemed to press closer, the rain tapping more insistently against the windows as if mirroring the tension within. Ronan leaned back in his chair, his gaze drifting to the darkened windows. The soft patter of rain, the dim lighting, everything felt close, suffocating. He exhaled, a harsh sound breaking the quiet. "You keep talking about caution, about playing it safe. But tell me, Liam, how long are we supposed to wait? How many people have to get trampled before we stand up and do something?" Liam's grip on his coffee cup tightened, his gaze steady on Ronan. A memory surfaced unbidden, a reminder of a time when he had acted without thought, when his impatience had cost him, and others, dearly. The scar from that day still ached whenever he saw the same fire in Ronan's eyes. "We're not just doing nothing, Ronan," he said softly, though his voice held an edge of steel. "We're building something, and that means making sure it can last. If we go too far now, if we lose control, we'll lose everything. Is that what you want?" Ronan's face twisted with frustration, but he held Liam's gaze. There was something vulnerable beneath the anger, a hint of doubt, a glimmer of disillusionment that he tried to hide. For a moment, his mask slipped, and Liam saw the toll that this struggle had taken on his friend. "Sometimes I wonder." Ronan's voice was barely a whisper, carrying a note of resignation that caught Liam off guard. "Sometimes I wonder if any of this even matters. Are we actually making a difference? Or are we just playing at change?" Liam watched him, sensing the weariness that Ronan tried to bury beneath his bravado. This wasn't just frustration. It was something deeper, a sense of futility, a quiet despair that clung to him like a shadow. Liam reached across the table, placing a hand on Ronan's shoulder, a grounding presence in the midst of the storm. "It matters, Ronan. Every step we take matters, even if we can't always see the results right away. His voice softened, his words carrying a quiet conviction. The long game isn't easy, but every bit of it makes a difference. We have to be insidious. Ronan looked away, his gaze distant, lost in thought. The rain had eased, softening to a steady patter against the windows. Silence settled between them, a silence filled with unspoken words, with the weight of shared struggles and countless arguments, with a trust that went deeper than their differences. After a moment, Ronan straightened, a faint, weary smile touching his lips. Maybe you're right. He stood, his movements slow, deliberate, as though each step carried the weight of the conversation they'd just had. But as he looked back at Liam, a flicker of defiance returned to his eyes. But we'll see how long I can play the long game, Liam. With that, he turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing through the empty cafe, leaving Liam alone with his thoughts. Liam watched him go, feeling a lingering echo of their conversation, the tension and the camaraderie that had always characterized their friendship. He took a long sip of his coffee, savoring the warmth as he settled back into his chair. He glanced toward the empty spot Ronan had left behind, and his mind drifted back to his friend's parting words. The plaza was beginning to quiet down, with fewer people milling about. He noticed the staff preparing to shut down for the night, moving around with a certain finality, wiping down tables and stacking chairs in the corners. Something about the moment felt strangely heavy, a sense of foreboding that he couldn't quite place. It was just a typical evening, a fleeting pause in the life of the plaza, but an unsettling quiet had fallen, making him feel oddly out of place. He shook his head, dismissing the feeling as nothing more than the effect of a long day and a thought-provoking conversation. He stood, taking his empty cup back to the counter. He felt restless, still mulling over Ronan's words about being too careful. Maybe he had lost a little fire over the years, he admitted to himself. Or maybe he'd just learned to pick his battles more wisely. Either way, he couldn't ignore that strange, lingering unease in the air. A feeling of quiet stretched out, thick and heavy, as if something unseen were hovering just beyond his awareness. Little did he know that this moment, this brief, quiet stillness, was the final calm before the storm.